1900s, you had all. If you've seen this picture in history books and your textbook at school, this is basically monopolies. Back in the 1900s and during the Industrial Revolution, companies basically monopolized everything, calling themselves trusts, and they basically owned everything. But are they much different than the current monopolies of now? Disney, Warner Brothers, Facebook, Google, Amazon. Isn't it no different than Silicon Valley's monopolies? The companies that I just mentioned. Also, we can throw in Microsoft as well. Well, as another monopoly as well. And yeah, this was getting so bad that we had to form the Antitrust Act, which basically describes unlawful mergers and business practices in general terms. We even courts decide which ones are illegal based on the facts of each case. But that was basically the end of the trusts. The oil trust, the railroad trust. But if you really think about it, most of our pop culture is owned by a few companies. Most of the brands you see at store are owned by a few companies. These are companies that are basically modern day monopolies. Companies like Microsoft, companies like Facebook, companies like Google. These companies own a lot of things. Microsoft owns most of the types of computers that are made. Facebook basically has a monopoly over its type of thing, social media. Whether it's only compared as being like Twitter. They own Instagram. They own WhatsApp, which are two of the most common and popularly used things on social media besides Facebook itself. Even if Facebook is dying, Instagram will still be widely used. Millions in the third world still use WhatsApp. Google is the most popular search engine. I get popularity is so not really be called a monopoly. That's what someone will say. For example, Amazon is the most popular delivery service because they're the only one that provides free shipping, because Walmart and the other companies refuse to do so. With its only competitors are really Walmart and Best Buy and a couple smaller shipping companies. But yeah, these are companies that basically have the control of supply and production and trade of some product and service. Companies like Microsoft and Google and Facebook and big tech have been used as monopoly examples. Companies like Disney have been referred to as monopolies. Or if you know this, these are a list of monopolies that are basically here. Okay, big food monopolies. This is all the stuff Kraft owns, all the stuff that Coca-Cola owns, all the stuff that PepsiCo owns, all the stuff that General Mills owns, which are really brands that they invented, except for a couple others. Kellogg's owns a lot, Mars owns a lot of the common candy brands. This company owns a lot of companies as well. Johnson owns a lot of companies, P&G owns a lot of companies, and Nestle owns a lot of companies. But no one is trying to break them up. All of these companies, all these brands should really be their own companies. Maybe not all of them, but really, they could be really breaking up into sectors of their own brand. They could really be spoken up. But nope, they are allowed to be owned by these companies. And it's not just big tech. It's also big food monopolies. Which own a lot. Of course, this is the example of the big tech monopolies. Of course, now Disney owns all Fox, so that means most of this is owned by Disney, except for Fox News. Yeah, all Fox News is actually an independent company. Sony is a Japanese company, so it can't really, that's really up to Japanese law. Viacom owns Paramount and a lot of TV stations, as well as Time Warner, which also merged with Discovery, now owns a lot of the TV market. Yet we continue. But yet they control 90% of the media outlets. But the government has done nothing about this. The government has let this slide. Which is why I think in the next couple of decades, this is gonna end. Okay? This is basically similar to what happened in the 1900s with the industrial trusts. Big tech, big food, big pharma, and all of that. They're all owned by a couple companies. Okay? These companies are the ones that hold such power over everything. Basically, there are four major media companies. Actually, four major media companies. Basically, now there's actually five cool time. Yeah, oh yeah, Warner Media. Oh yeah, AT&T owns Warner Media, which also merged with Discovery, which already was actually technically under the, but it was also under the jurisdiction of Viacom. But yeah, a lot of this stuff is owned only by four companies. Why hasn't they done anything to break up these companies? Why haven't they done anything? For example, Disney owns all 20th Century Fox, so now renamed 20th Century Studios, with the exception of Fox News. Yeah, they don't own that. Just telling you that. They also own Hulu. They also own National Geographic, which really I don't think National Geographic can really survive on their own. Google owns YouTube, which is the platform that is they also own Docs and all that stuff, but those are like original products that they Google created. I'm talking about stuff that companies buy. And also the same thing with ISPs and other things. Such few companies really own things, which really destroys the American dream. The American dream was basically so people, anyone of any talent, any skill age, can basically make it out. But because of these monopolies, no one can really get anywhere. They either have to join the monopolies or persist and die. Basically. That's basically the whole gist of it. And most people have been talking about this for years. But you know what the government has done? Nothing. Nothing. The government has done absolutely nothing to defeat these monopolies. Oh, they're not under one company, but there's still a couple of companies. Such few companies own so much of the pop culture. Such few companies own most of the technology we use. Such few companies own everything. And no, I don't think we need to intervene with Chinese companies like TikTok or, Huawei or whatever it's called, or, Japanese companies. But even then, there's still a lot of more Japanese companies than there are American companies. Because there wasn't really much, it's much harder to get to a monopoly in Japan. But in America, you only have like one company really controlling everything. Okay. And all the way back in the day, monopolies were discouraged. But basically, this is a new monopoly. Okay? They'll tell you that there's no need for antitrust actions, yet they control most of everything. They destroy their competition. And it's not just... And it's the same thing with... again, big food could be broken up as well. And other big things like big media and big pharma and big media. Oh, yeah, fans said big media twice. But yeah, all of this stuff is monopolies. And basically, the government basically tried to get rid of monopolies a century ago. But now they have come back in a different form. Such few companies own most of the things that we consume. Most of the consume. As well. Yeah. But they'll tell you they're not monopolies. They'll tell you they're not monopolies. Time and time and time again, they'll tell you they're not monopolies. Yeah, this is what they own. They own most of the things. I see another bit similar to many of the other collapses. I'm going to foresee by the end of the summer and within the next decade, or this decade, there is going to be a big tech and big monopoly collapse. Because the bigger they get, the harder they fall. And what happened during the 1900s was stopped by the government. And basically, you're always seeing this with Disney. The fact that Disney's completely failing as well. And now I can see this with other companies. For example, animation is having a really big struggle because of these monopolies. Because they control so much of our pop culture, but yet we let it all happen. And now we're paying the price for the monopolies. Goodbye.